Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being on our program today. I'm really honored and excited to bring in someone that we talked about almost a year ago, the author, Joseph C. Robledo, Blood on the Campus. Blood on the Campus. As you can see the background as well. Blood on the Campus. I was thrilled to be able, we were at the time, we could be face to face with each other. We were at your house and we took a shot where you're punching me, I'm punching you. I love that shot. But then we'll use that today as well. You know, and I've had time to think about the book, and I just love the story about how this young man, i.e. your father, you know, went into the ring at a very young age, but through a series of circumstances, both directly and indirectly in the ring, he lost his sight and became blind. If I remember correctly, you mentioned he became blind at the age of 20.
Yes,
I can
that's
imagine.
correct.
Now I can imagine, you know, someone who is doing very successful in the ring, you know, going to a, you know, national, international level, you know, everything seems great in his future. And all of a sudden he starts to realize through an accident or maybe intentional, he starts losing his vision. And when I got to chapter 7, the future, a future hopeless and unsure, I started to really pay attention to the idea that, you know, what on a personal level he must have gone through at the idea of realizing that he lost his vision and then the depression that set in. I want to start from there, but there's a positive side to this that we want to address today. So tell me, from that moment, when you were writing chapter 7, A Future Hopeless and Unsure, what was in your mind? What do you remember?
Well, I can remember stories my father had told me about the time that he was going through this. My father and I spoke quite a bit about the depressions and things that he was going to. He was under very sad, and at that time he was wanting to give up on life, but something about him that he contained always the idea of hope. He believed that there would be hope for him. And that was a spirit that my father carried all throughout his life.
There is one sentence that just stopped me in my tracks. And that I kept going in circles trying to wrap my head around it. And I thought, I have to have you back on the show. I've got to ask you to please explain this to me. The challenges of working in the corner with a fighter as a blind manager. I said, let me say that again, because it's just like I said, even now as I say it. So here's a person in the ring, and his manager is in the corner behind him, and he's blind. How is this possible?
Well, my father had a natural instinct about things. He could hear acutely so well. He could tell where the fighters were inside of the square circle or the ring. He could tell from the sound of the blows how strong they were. And of course, with him at all times, I would narrate the fight to him. And I took the position of not trying to be favorable to our side. I want to be as neutral as possible. And so we communicated that way. And I was very truthful about the fight that was unfolding in front of my eyes. And I was trying to relate it as important as I saw it to him. And with that information, and along with his other instincts that he had, he could almost feel like he was in the same fight himself.
Wow.
Very intense.
And then even the training, how did he train the fighters while he was blind?
Well, again, my father, always knew who was in the gym at all times. And if he didn't, he would walk up to where the sound was that somebody was hitting the bag or someone sitting down. He would introduce himself and see, what was happening. He just didn't let anybody into his gym. He was a very, very straightforward person coming from old school of boxing. In other words, he didn't BS too much. But to answer your question, my father would, like with me and many other fighters he trained, he would put his hands on your shoulders. He would stand behind you, and he would instruct you to throw a jab or a right hand or whatever the combination might be. And he could feel your shoulders turning. He could feel if you were absolutely turning your waist, if you're getting maximum power from this punch. He could tell if your hands were up high because he would feel your elbows from behind. He knew where your hands were at all times, pretty much just by feeling where the elbows were. And if your elbows are down, your hands are down. So I always make sure to keep them elbows up close to you and keep your hands up. He often would stand by the person hitting the speed ball, perhaps, for example. And again, there he would just very lightly touch their shoulder with one hand, and he would feel the one side as it was striking the ball, and then he would switch to the other left hand, and he would feel how the left hand was striking the ball. You know, so because you need two hands to hit the speed ball. So both sides are working simultaneously at the same time. So he could tell if you were stronger on one side or weaker on the other side, or what you needed to improve on. And of course, the sound of the ball, the sound of the gym, it was very important to him, extremely important. So that's kind of how my dad sort of trained the fighters.
How old were you when you were commentating on being a commentator on the fights that you were sharing the information with your father?
Well, I was a little older. I would say I was about 19 or 20 years old.
Oh, okay.
You know, I pretty much fought through my career. My dad wanted me, and I was going to school at the time. He didn't want me to fight anymore, so I would become his narrator, commentator for the fights. And we just grew a bond. And it all, you know, Armando, it starts way before in the dressing room. That's where, you know, a lot of people don't know what's happening because they just see the fighter maybe coming out and getting into the ring. But all of this activity with the blind man in the dressing room is amazing.
Tell us about it. Tell us a case. Tell us one case that you remember out of many.
There were many people that knew my dad from various sporting worlds, basketball, baseball, and they would often come up to him. And Sugar Ray Leonard, for example, saw my dad sitting there filling the gloves out, and he comes up and he hugs my dad and whispers something in his ear, and they just embrace and they have a good time talking. You know, he was very open to a lot of the people that came around him. Some had little quirks about him. They would come up and pinch the back of his ear. He knew who in the hell they were. I couldn't believe that. How the hell did he know these guys? One would pinch on one side and the other one would pinch on the other side. He knew every one of them. And even if they tried to disguise their voice, he'd put his hand on your shoulder. And he would let you know, I know who you are.
Fantastic. What a story about someone who's blind and yet, you know, finds a full life in there. What was the moment that turned his life around to say that he was in a sense of hopelessness and depression, and then he switched and found this new world of being able to train people even though he was blind?
Well, I think that the story my father told me firsthand was that he believed that the angel came to him after the accident there that I chronicle in the book. And with the angel appearing to him, in a sense, of not seeing her or him, the angel, he told me, it was a boy, it was an angel, and that the boy would take him home. And he felt like a sense of everything was going to be okay, Cano. Everything is going to be fine. You just don't give up. Don't give up, Cano. You got to keep pushing forward. You have to have perseverance, Cano. Don't do this again. And my dad felt that that message came to him was meant to be for him to turn his life around. And I think from that moment on, my dad began to realize his importance to the family, to his new daughter that was just born, firstborn daughter, my sister Gloria, he now accepted her, where before he didn't want anything to do with her because he couldn't see her.
Wow. What was the moment? What was the moment of inspiration for him to help the boxers?
Yes, my dad always had that sense that he wanted to help the young community, the young boys, stay out of trouble. And even with the small garage, he welcomed everybody back there. It didn't matter what my father was doing. He would see him and have him go to the gym. He said in this game, you don't have no time for yourself. This is a game that you have to be with the kids. And my dad felt love. He felt encouragement from this. He felt a sense of, he had hope again. He had hope in humanity, and that he felt that he was doing something that was his calling now. And he knew it was a tough game that he was going to be getting back into, but still he continued. They respected him so much in the professional world that it gave him a sense of fulfillment. It made him want to give back to humanity and do the right thing for children instead of just sitting in the corner with a basket. That wasn't him. He wanted to help the young kids of the community, and it just grew from there. And then one garage, I mean, literally a garage led to a bigger garage, and then a larger garage, and then Crown City Stables happened, so it just grew because of his encouragement. He was an inspiration to the community, and the police would always bring the delinquents by and talk with Cano about maybe he could give him some consejos and try to help him out, get him a start in boxing. He worked with the Optimist Home for Boys, always did shows for them, never charged them a dime. They always brought the boys in the van over there. He loved them all. And the United Way, he was involved with the United Way at one time. And so my dad had a hell of a lot of perseverance. He was a dedicated man. And once he got on the path, he felt that he was doing the best that he could do as a blind man.
How long did he do this? From the moment he started, like you said, his garage in back of the house to his last days. How many years was this?
Oh, my dad, I would say my dad was in the fight game, including after his blindness, right? That's what you want to know, after his blindness.
That he was helping the community.
I would say he really took off in the mid-1935s, early 40s. He had stables then. And then because he talked about a lot of the soldiers being drafted from his garage to go fight, and then how they came back. So he went from probably strong from the 30s all the way up to the 80s. Wow. About 5-6 decades. Trained over 1,000 fighters.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So people still remember him. I mean, there are people, a lot of fighters, or ex-fighters now, that still remember him, and the story is still out in the open.
I got a call yesterday from a man that I hadn't seen. He was a 7-8-year-old chavalo working out of the gym back in 1984. He called me about Sky Blue and said, I'm so glad that you wrote this book. I've been looking for information about your father. I've been searching and searching for all these years. And he spent 45 minutes talking to me, and he says, I can remember your father putting his hand on my shoulder telling me, you got a damn good right hand, but your left hand is weak. You need to work on it. And he said that, he always gave them a feeling of encouragement, and he made them feel better. And they remember that to this year. This man's probably like 38, 40 years old, and he still has those memories today. And like, it blows me away that some of the people that I meet.
Two things. Is this book in Braille?
It's not in Braille right now. No, I've considered doing that, but I will get it in Braille. I'm talking with my publisher about it right now, and you know, we're looking at a cost factor with that right now.
Well, we're going to have to talk to Thelma Tirrena from Golden Foothills Press, who happens to be another guest on my other shows as well. And she was one of the persons that just told me, you know, you got to talk to Joseph. You got to talk to him. Blood on the Canvas, the life and legacy of fighting icon Canto TNT Robledo. And just I want to make a quick add to the story. You were also in the ring yourself, and you eventually became a counselor and a teacher and other things. So that's a whole different story unto itself. But I cannot share enough the importance of people that know other people that are blind, or just to bring that story to the surface of hope, perseverance. For people that are blind, born blind, or in the process of becoming blind, yes, that's been removed, but you still have a future. Your knowledge is still there. And like I said, what I listened to when I heard from you, people can hear things that, you know, other people can't because they're so busy seeing it, where your dad could hear the hits, could hear the movement, hear the sounds, and he was able to put that picture together. What an incredible story. But every person who knows a blind person, or a person who is in that situation, should definitely know about your book. And I'm hopeful that not only will it become Braille, but it'll become Braille and distributed worldwide as well.
Well, thank you. You know, my dad always left people feeling better than when they first arrived. And, you know, many people ask me about a guy named Tom Donahue, which was Cannell's manager, which really pushed him into those fights instead of not really helping my dad when he knew the eyesight was failing. He came to my father in 1958. My dad hadn't seen him in all years, and broke down and cried with my dad and felt so sorry of what he had done. And my dad told him, I forgive you, Tom. It's just the way life is. Don't give up and keep going. And that was such a beautiful reunion, because I thought he would be bitter with this manager that left him. Remember, he left him right after he went blind. So I thought that was quite a moving tribute to my dad. He never harbored ill feelings. Maybe he did at the beginning, but you know, and this man came begging for his forgiveness. And so my dad always gave people hope. Gave me hope quite a bit as well when, you know, I had some tough times in my life.
Well, I'm just thrilled that you wrote the book.
Yes.
That you continue to share the story with everyone. We are going to give out your contact information, so if people want to learn more about the story itself. Again, I recommend everyone to pick it up and read it. It's
Thank
just
you.
a treasure in my book list as well. And by the same token, I'm glad his spirit goes through you, because I can sense it, that I'm almost talking to him. And that because you were so closely related to the events that he was going through, you bring that whole sense of hope and perseverance for all of us. So I want to thank you for that as well, and the work that you do to continue that as well. As we're ready to close the show, I'd like to give you a moment to reflect and give us your closing statements.
My father's legacy is of hope and not giving up, perseverance, working hard. Whatever obstacles my dad faced in his life, he always gave his best foot forward, and was a very good father for me, a very good role model for my dad to me. Even as a young chavalo growing up, I saw the respect that older men, sports writers, commentators would give my dad. Even when we were on national television, they always paid homage to him, because they knew that he was the only blind manager and trainer in the world to hold a professional license in boxing.
Wow.
Still to this day, only one. And I felt an honor to be with my dad when we would go into the dressing rooms. He always was, people like they were in awe of him. They want Don Canto. They always respected him, especially the Mexican fighters, world-class fighters, Salvador Sanchez, many fighters that go way back. And I saw that as a young man, and the respect that they gave him. And so that passed over, I think, to me. He always listened to them, was very humble. I always spoke the truth to them, whether they liked it or not. You would think some of these conversations I could go on and on. I mean, anyway, we have to do this again. I can give you the episode at the Olympic Auditorium in Don Frazier's office.
Wonderful, wonderful. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we've had
always a pleasure, Armando, speaking with you, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Joseph Robledo. He is the author, Blood on the Canvas. Once again, I recommend you get it. We also want to do a sidebar here and thank Erica, your daughter, for helping us put this together. So un aplauso for Erica as well. She's in the background helping out.
Yeah.
Yeah, bring her in. Thank you, Erica. Hey, get that PhD done right away.
2022.
There you go. I know you'll get it done. And again, the book is available on Amazon. I know it can be looked up as well. We're going to make a commitment here to work on getting it on braille worldwide. Yeah. And the idea is to share the story. So to finish and conclude, I'm going to post my email address right underneath. And please, you can contact him directly or me. And if you have questions about the idea that if you're visually impaired into blindness, this is one story of others that should be shared about how people do not lose their ability to be part of society, part of the world, and help make this a better environment for all of us. Joseph, thank you for being a guest on our show.
Thank you. Alrighty.